I never thought a simple knock at midnight could change the shape of my entire life. For 18 months, Mara Collins had lived across the hall from me with her 7-year-old daughter, Ellie. We had rules, separate rooms, separate hearts, no confusing the child, no crossing lines neither of us were brave enough to name. But that night, I opened my bedroom door and found Mara standing there barefoot, trembling with tears in her eyes. Then she asked me one question. "Caleb, why are we still sleeping in separate rooms?" I should have answered carefully. I should have protected the life we had built. Instead, I realized the woman I had been trying not to love was already home. Before we continue, tell me in the comments, if someone you secretly loved asked you that question, would you tell the truth or stay silent to protect them? If this story touches your heart, please subscribe, and stay with me until the end. I used to believe a house could be quiet enough to heal a man. That was why I bought the old place on Maple Ridge after my divorce. 2 stories, bad plumbing, stubborn windows, and a front porch that leaned slightly to the left, no matter how many weekends I spent trying to correct it. To most people, it looked like a project. To me, it looked like punishment with walls. I was 37, a home renovation contractor, and I knew how to fix almost anything except the part of me that still flinched whenever someone said forever. So I worked. I sanded floors until my hands cramped. I replaced cabinets. I tore out rotted trim and rebuilt the back steps. At night, I ate dinner standing over the sink because setting the table for one felt too honest. Then Mara Collins moved into the room across the hall. She arrived with 1 suitcase, 2 laundry baskets, and a 7-year-old daughter named Ellie, who carried a stuffed rabbit by one ear and looked at my house like it might bite her. Mara was 32, small but not fragile, with tired brown eyes and the posture of a woman who had spent years refusing to fall apart in front of anyone. "I can pay the first month now," she said before she even stepped inside. I remember looking at Ellie, hiding behind her mother's cardigan, and saying, "You can bring the boxes in first." Mara blinked like kindness made her suspicious. That was 18 months ago. By the time the story truly began, my quiet house was no longer quiet. There were colored pencils in my junk drawer, strawberry yogurt in my refrigerator, and a tiny pair of sneakers always abandoned near the stairs. Like Ellie believed shoes simply retired wherever they got tired. Mara made coffee too strong and pretended it was normal. Ellie taped drawings to my workshop door. One said, "Mr. Caleb fixes broken things." I stood there for 5 full minutes pretending sawdust had gotten into my eyes. We had rules, of course. Separate rooms. No confusing Ellie. No late-night emotional conversations. No pretending this was anything more than a safe place for Mara to rebuild her life. The problem was life does not care much about rules written by lonely people. Somewhere between fixing Ellie's closet door and learning that Mara hummed when she cooked, the house changed. It stopped feeling like a place I survived in. It started feeling like a place I want to come home to. And that scared me more than the silence ever had. Because Mara was not mine to want. She was healing. She was protecting her daughter. And I had promised myself I would never become another man who mistook a woman's need for an invitation. So every night I closed my bedroom door. And every night the room across the hall stayed closed, too, until the night Mara knocked. The knock came at 12:17 a.m. I know the exact time because I was still awake, staring at the ceiling and pretending I wasn't thinking about the woman sleeping 20 feet away. The house was quiet, no television, no traffic, just the occasional creak of old wood settling into the night. Then came 3 soft knocks, not urgent, not frightened, just enough to make me sit up immediately. My first thought was Ellie. Whenever you live with a child, every unexpected sound after midnight becomes an emergency until proven otherwise. I swung my legs off the bed and crossed the room. "Mara," I called. Another knock. I opened the door and forgot what I was about to say. Mara stood in the hallway wearing gray sweatpants and an oversized blue t-shirt. Her hair was loose around her shoulders. Her arms were folded tightly across her chest. She looked nervous, not scared, not upset, nervous, which somehow worried me more. "Is Ellie okay?" I asked immediately. "She's asleep?" I exhaled. "Then what's wrong?" For a second, she didn't answer. The hallway light cast a soft glow across her face, and I noticed she had probably been standing there longer than I realized, trying to gather the courage to knock. That realization made my pulse do something unhelpful. "Can I come in?" she asked. My room suddenly felt much smaller. "Yeah, of course." She stepped inside. I closed the door behind her. The moment the latch clicked, every survival instinct in my body started screaming that whatever happened next was going to change something. Mara sat on the edge of the chair near my desk. I stayed standing, mostly because I wasn't sure my legs would cooperate if I sat down. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, I laughed nervously. This is usually the part where someone tells me the refrigerator exploded. Her lips twitched. I checked the refrigerator. Still alive. Good. The smile faded. The silence returned. Then she looked up at me, and I saw tears in her eyes. Not crying, just holding them back. My chest tightened immediately. "Mara?" She shook her head. "I'm okay." People almost never say that when they're okay. I moved closer. "What happened?" Her fingers twisted together in her lap. For a moment, she stared at the floor. Then she took a slow breath. "Ellie asked me something tonight." I waited. After I tucked her in, another pause. "She asked why you sleep in this room." I frowned. "What?" Mara laughed softly, though there wasn't much humor in it. That was my reaction, too. I sat down across from her. "What did you tell her?" Her eyes met mine. "Nothing." "Mara?" I didn't know what to say. The room felt strangely warm. Outside wind brushed softly against the windows. Inside, my heartbeat sounded loud enough to be embarrassing. "Kids ask weird questions," I said carefully. "Not like this." Something in her voice made me stop. She looked away, then back at me, and suddenly I understood this conversation wasn't really about Ellie. Not entirely. Mara swallowed. She said something else. I felt my stomach tighten. "What?" The answer came out almost as a whisper. She asked why we're still pretending. Every muscle in my body went still. The air between us seemed to shift. Slowly, dangerously, Mara stood. I stood, too. Now only a few feet separated us. For 18 months, we had lived inside carefully drawn boundaries. For 18 months, we had acted like friendship was enough. For 18 months, I had ignored every feeling that made life complicated. Mara's eyes shone, and then she finally said it. The question that would split my life into before and after. "Caleb?" My name sounded different in her voice. Softer, braver, terrifying. She took one step closer. "Why are we still sleeping in separate rooms?" The world stopped. Not dramatically, not all at once. Just enough that I forgot how to breathe. Because the truth was simple. I knew exactly why. And I was suddenly terrified she already knew the answer. I did not answer Mara right away. That was the first honest thing I did. Because any quick answer would have been a lie. I could have said we slept in separate rooms because it was respectful. I could have said it was for Ellie. I could have blamed timing, boundaries, old wounds, or the fact that neither of us had ever been good at asking for what we wanted. All of that would have sounded noble, but the truth was uglier. I slept across the hall because I was afraid that if I opened one door, I would want every other door open, too. Mara stood in front of me, waiting, her arms wrapped around herself, like she was trying to hold in the courage it had taken to come here. "We made rules," I said finally. Her eyes softened, but she did not look away. "I know. We made them for a reason. I know that, too." The room went quiet, and suddenly I was back 18 months earlier, standing in my kitchen with Mara Collins while rain tapped against the windows and Ellie slept curled up on my couch. Mara had come to see the spare room after my Aunt June mentioned I rented sometimes to people who needed short-term housing. That was technically true, though I had not rented it in years. I liked my solitude then, or at least I liked pretending solitude was different from loneliness. Mara arrived late, apologizing 3 times before stepping inside. Ellie held her hand with both of hers. Victor had dropped him outside the county courthouse that afternoon. After another argument, I did not know the details of yet. All I knew was that Mara looked like someone who had spent too long being told she was difficult for needing peace. "I don't want charity," she said that night. I'm not offering charity. You don't even know me. I know June. She knows you. That's enough for tonight. She looked around the half-renovated kitchen at the exposed cabinet hinges and the patch of unfinished drywall near the back door. This house is still being fixed. So are most people. That was the first time I saw her almost smile. Before she moved in, we sat at the table and wrote down boundaries like two people negotiating a fragile peace treaty. Separate bedrooms. Shared groceries only when agreed. No parenting decisions for me unless Mara asked. No bringing Ellie into adult problems. No mixed signals. No romance. Mara was the one who said the last rule. I remember how quickly I nodded. Too quickly. Because even then, some quiet part of me had already noticed the way she tucked Ellie's hair behind her ear, the way she said thank you like she did not fully trust kindness, the way she looked exhausted but unbroken. Back in my bedroom, Mara's voice pulled me into the present. Those rules kept us safe, she said. Yes, but they also kept us lonely. That landed harder than I wanted it to. She stepped closer, just enough that I could see the small tremble in her hands. I didn't come here because I forgot what we agreed to, Caleb. I came because I remember all of it. Every line, every promise, every reason we told ourselves this could never become something else. My throat tightened, and her eyes filled again, but this time she smiled through it. And somehow I fell in love with you anyway. I closed my eyes for 1 second. Just one, because hearing it was everything I had wanted and everything I had feared. When I opened them, Mara was still there, still waiting, still brave. And all I could think was that the woman I had promised not confuse had just made the only honest thing in the room impossible to avoid. I should have said something back. A decent man would have. A brave man definitely would have. But I stood there with Mara's confession hanging between us, beautiful and dangerous. And for a moment I was neither decent nor brave. I was just a man who had spent 18 months building walls out of restraint, only to realize she had been standing on the other side, touching the same wall with both hands. Mara, I said quietly. She gave a small laugh. That is usually what people say when they are about to break your heart. I'm not trying to. I know. That made it worse. She knew me too well. She knew the part of me that wanted her so badly my chest hurt. And she knew the part of me that would rather bleed quietly than risk becoming another complication in her life. Before I could find the right words, a floorboard creaked outside my room. Mara turned. I opened the door. Ellie stood in the hallway, holding her stuffed rabbit against her chest. Her hair was messy from sleep, and one sock had slipped halfway off her foot. "Mom," she whispered. Mara crossed to her immediately. "Sweetheart, why are you awake?" Ellie rubbed one eye. I had the dream again. The fear on Mara's face changed shape. Everything romantic vanished in an instant, replaced by a mother's focus. I stayed by the doorway, hands useless at my sides. Ellie looked past Mara at me. "Can Mr. Caleb check the window?" My throat tightened. "Of course, kiddo." Her bedroom was across from mine, smaller than the others, painted pale yellow, because Ellie said white walls felt too empty. I checked the window lock, then the closet, then under the bed, because Ellie believed monsters were sneaky, but not very creative. "All clear," I said. She nodded seriously. Mara tucked her back under the blanket. I started to leave, but Ellie caught my sleeve. "Mr. Caleb?" "Yeah. If you live here and we live here and you fix everything, are you kind of our family?" The room went silent. Mara froze beside the bed. I looked at Ellie's small hand on my sleeve and felt something inside me crack open. "That's a big question," I said. Ellie yawned. "Mom said families take care of each other." I glanced at Mara. Her eyes were shining. "They do," I said carefully. "Then you're almost family." Almost. That word should have made things easier. Instead, it nearly broke me. Ellie smiled sleepily, satisfied with her own logic. "Almost Dad," she murmured. Then she turned onto her side and closed her eyes. Mara covered her mouth with one hand. I stepped into the hallway because suddenly the air in that little yellow room felt too full. Mara followed me and pulled the door mostly closed. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. Finally, she whispered, "I'm sorry." I turned to her. "For what?" "For that. For Ellie." For putting that on you. She didn't put anything on me. Mara shook her head. She's 7. She attaches. She hopes. And I should have been more careful. There it was. The fear underneath everything. Not that Mara loved me. Not that I might love her back. But that Ellie might love me, too. And if I failed them, I would not just break one heart. I would break 2. I stepped closer slowly. Mara listened to me. She looked up. I am not scared because Ellie said that. Then why are you scared? The honest answer rose before I could stop it. Because I wanted to hear it. Mara went still. The hallway seemed to narrow around us. I swallowed hard. I wanted to be that for her. For both of you. And that scares me because wanting it doesn't automatically mean I deserve it. Mara's face softened, and for 1 second, I thought she might reach for me. Then her phone rang downstairs. Sharp, sudden wrong. We both turned toward the sound. It rang again. Mara's expression changed before she even looked at the screen. Some fears have names. Hers was Victor. Mara did not move toward the phone right away. That told me everything. People answer calls differently depending on who is calling. Ellie's teacher got Mara's immediate attention. My Aunt June got a smile before the first ring ended. Unknown numbers got narrowed eyes and suspicion. But Victor Hale got stillness. The phone rang a 3rd time on the kitchen counter downstairs. Mara closed her eyes. Don't answer it. I said. She gave me a tired look. If I don't, he'll call again. Then let him call. If I let him call, he'll text. If I don't answer the text, he'll show up tomorrow at Ellie's school acting like a concerned father. Her voice was calm, but not because she felt calm, because she had practiced fear until it sounded reasonable. We went downstairs together. The screen lit up with Victor's name. Mara picked up the phone, but before she answered, she looked at me. Don't say anything. I nodded. Though every part of me wanted to do the opposite, she put the call on speaker. Victor, it's late. His voice came through smooth and sharp. Is my daughter asleep? Mara's jaw tightened. Our daughter is asleep. Good. Then you can explain why she told me Caleb, fix her window again. I felt my hands curl at my sides. Mara stayed steady. Because the latch was loose. Funny, last I checked, you were capable of calling a landlord. He is the landlord. No, Victor said. He's the man you live with. The kitchen seemed to go colder. Mara's eyes flicked to mine, then away. That is not your business. It becomes my business when my child is sleeping under the same roof as some divorced contractor you barely knew before moving in. I stepped forward. Mara lifted one hand quickly. Stop. I stopped. Victor laughed softly. Is he there right now? Mara did not answer. That's what I thought. Why are you calling? Because my attorney thinks this living arrangement might become relevant. The color drained from Mara's face. I felt my stomach drop. Victor continued almost casually. A single mother sharing a house with an unrelated man. A child emotionally attached to him. Boundaries unclear. Looks unstable, Mara. You don't get to threaten me. I'm not threatening you. I'm protecting Ellie. That was the line controlling men always used when they wanted their cruelty to sound noble. Mara's hand shook around the phone. Ellie is safe. Then prove it. Move out, or I'll ask the court to review custody. For a second, there was no sound except the old refrigerator humming beside us. Then Victor added lower. You always needed someone to rescue you. First me, now him. Maybe it's time Ellie lived with a parent who can stand on her own. Mara flinched. Not physically. Worse. Something behind her eyes folded inward. I had heard enough. She can stand, I said. Mara turned toward me. Startled, Victor went silent. Then who's that? I stepped closer to the phone. The man whose house your daughter sleeps safely in. Victor laughed once. There he is, the hero. No, I said. Just someone who knows the difference between concern and control. Mara whispered. Caleb. But I was not finished. You can call your attorney, I said. You can twist every good thing in this house until it looks suspicious. But don't pretend this is about Ellie when it's really about losing power over Mara. Victor's voice sharpened. You have no idea what you're stepping into. Maybe not. I looked at Mara. Her eyes were wet, afraid, and furious all at once. But I know what I'm standing beside. The call ended. Mara lowered the phone slowly. For one fragile second, I thought she might breathe. Instead, she walked past me, went upstairs, and closed her bedroom door. Not slammed, closed quietly. That was worse. I stayed in the kitchen until I heard a drawer open above me. Then another. Then the sound I feared most, a suitcase zipper. I did not sleep that night. Not because of Victor, not even because of the custody threat. I stayed awake because I knew exactly what that suitcase meant. Mara was leaving. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next week, but once a person starts packing in their heart, the suitcase is only paperwork. Around 2 o'clock in the morning, I walked downstairs for water. The house was dark. The kitchen light over the sink was still on, and there it was, a navy suitcase standing beside the front door, ready, waiting. The sight hit me harder than Victor ever could. For 18 months, Mara and Ellie had turned my house into something alive. Now that suitcase looked like a warning that all of it could disappear. I stood there staring at it until I heard soft footsteps behind me. Mara, she wore the same gray sweatshirt from earlier. Her eyes were red, not from crying, from trying not to. Neither of us spoke at first. Then I nodded toward the suitcase. Planning a trip? A sad smile touched her mouth. I always hated when people do that. Do what? Pretend. They don't know what they're looking at. I looked down. Fair. The silence stretched. Finally, she sat at the kitchen table. I joined her. The distance between us felt larger than the entire house. I can't let him use you, she said quietly. I already knew who she meant. Mara, no. She shook her head. Listen first. I did, because loving someone sometimes means shutting up long enough to hear their fear. Her fingers wrapped around a coffee mug she wasn't drinking from. Victor has money, lawyers, connections. He also has an ego the size of Texas that almost earned a smile. Almost. But he knows how to make things look bad. I lean back. And what exactly looks bad? A single mother living with a man she isn't married to. I stared at her. You think leaving fixes that? It removes you from it. There it was. Not self-protection. Protection. Mara wasn't trying to save herself. She was trying to save me. And somehow that hurt even more. I rubbed my face. You know what the problem is? What? You still think I'm helping you. Her eyes narrowed. You are helping me. No. I shook my head. Not anymore. She looked confused, so I continued. When you moved in, maybe I was helping. When Ellie was scared of thunderstorms, maybe I was helping. When I fixed cabinet doors and drove her school and sat through second-grade recitals, maybe I was helping. I swallowed. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being charity, Mara. The room went very still. This became my life. Her breath caught. I saw it happen. The exact moment my words reached somewhere she had been guarding. But fear reached it, too. Fear always arrived first. That doesn't make this fair to you. Who decides what's fair? Caleb, you? Her eyes flashed. No, Victor. No. Then who? She looked away. And that was answer enough. Because Mara had spent years letting other people define what she deserved. Victor, judges, employers, landlords, everyone except herself. I wanted to tell her she deserved everything. The house, the safety, the future me. But wanting something doesn't mean you get to place it in someone else's hands. So instead, I stood, walked the front door, and moved the suitcase aside. Not hidden. Not clear as throat. Unpacked. Just no longer waiting in the center of the hallway like a threat. Mara watched silently. What are you doing? I looked at her, making room. For what? The answer came before I could stop it. For you to choose. Tears filled her eyes immediately. And since that's not your way, I understood something. She wasn't afraid of Victor. Not really. She wasn't afraid of custody court, or lawyers, or gossip. She was afraid that if she stayed, she might finally allow herself to be loved. A soft knock interrupted us. Both of us turned. The back door opened. Aunt June stepped inside, carrying a paper bag. At 2:30 in the morning. June? She looked between us, then at the suitcase, then at our faces. Good, she said. Everybody looks miserable. I blinked. What? She set the bag down. Means I'm not too late. For the next hour, June listened. really listened. When Mara finished explaining everything, June sat back in her chair. Then she looked directly at me. "Don't chase her." Mara frowned. "What?" June pointed at me. "He's already halfway out the door emotionally." I opened my mouth. She ignored me. Then she looked at Mara. "And you are halfway out the door physically." Nobody argued, because she was right. June folded her hands. "Caleb, if you run after her like a hero, she'll leave." I stared. "That makes no sense." "It makes perfect sense." June smiled gently, because heroes rescue people. Her gaze shifted to Mara. Partners let people choose. The kitchen fell silent. I looked at Mara. She looked back at me. And for the first time all night, neither of us looked at the suitcase. We looked at each other. The next morning, I drove to the custody mediation office. Not to rescue Mara, not to fight Victor, but because some choices are too important to watch from a distance. And I was finally done standing in the hallway between fear and love. The custody mediation office looked exactly the way bad news felt. Gray walls, gray carpet, gray chairs lined against a gray hallway. Even the coffee in the waiting room looked exhausted. I arrived 15 minutes early, not because I thought I could solve anything, because sitting at home while Mara faced Victor alone felt impossible. Clears? Throat. When I stepped into the lobby, I saw them immediately. Mara sat beside Ellie, holding her hand. Ellie swung her legs nervously from the chair. Victor stood near the window, wearing an expensive navy suit and the expression of a man who believed confidence and entitlement were the same thing. Mara looked up first. Her eyes widened. "Caleb." I walked toward them. "Hey." Ellie jumped up. "Mr. Caleb." Before anyone could stop her, she wrapped her arms around my waist. The entire room seemed to notice. Victor certainly did. His jaw tightened immediately. I crouched down and smiled at Ellie. "You doing okay?" She nodded, then shook her head, then nodded again. "Not really." I couldn't help laughing softly. Fair answer. Mara stood. "You didn't have to come." "Yes, I did. Something fragile passed between us. Not romance. Not yet. Something deeper, recognition. The acknowledgement that neither of us wanted to carry this alone anymore." Victor walked over. "Interesting." I stood. He extended a hand. I ignored it. His smile sharpened. "Protective." "No," I said calmly. "Present." His eyes narrowed. The mediator opened the conference room door. Everyone ready? Nobody was. But we went in anyway. The meeting lasted nearly an hour. Most of it was paperwork, schedules, school records, and discussions about parenting arrangements. Mara stayed calm. Victor stayed polished. I stayed quiet until he decided not to. Toward the end of the meeting, Victor leaned back in his chair and looked directly at the mediator. "I have concerns about the environment my daughter is living in." Mara stiffened. Dada looked up. "What concerns?" Victor folded his hands. "An unrelated man lives in the home." The room grew colder. "Mara and Mr. Turner are emotionally involved." His eyes shifted toward me, which creates confusion for a child. Ellie was in the room. Thank God, because children should never hear adults weaponize love. Mara sat up straighter. "That's not what this is." Victor laughed softly. "Then explain it." I watched Mara's face. The fear was there, but something else was there, too. Exhaustion. She was tired of defending her existence. Tired of proving she wasn't reckless. Tired of being judged for choosing peace. The mediator turned toward me. "Mr. Turner, would you like to respond?" I looked at Victor, then at Mara, then at the stack of papers in front of us. Every document seemed to ask the same question. Who are you to this family? The answer came easily, because it had been true long before I admitted it. I am not replacing anyone. The room went silent. Victor frowned. I continued. "I'm not trying to replace her father." I nodded toward the empty hallway where Ellie waited. "I don't want his title." Victor's expression darkened. "But I care about her." I looked at the mediator. "And I care about Mara." No hesitation. No apology. Just truth. Not because they need saving. My voice stayed steady. Not because they owe me anything. I glanced at Mara. Her eyes were already shining. "I care about them because they're my family." Victor scoffed. "Family, yes." The word felt surprisingly simple. "I help with homework." I show up at school plays. I know which cereal Ellie refuses to eat and which stuffed rabbit has to come on every road trip. I smile faintly, and Mara knows exactly how much sugar I pretend not to put in my coffee. The mediator's mouth twitched. Victor did not look amused. Good. For once, I wasn't talking to him. I was talking to the woman beside me, the woman who had spent 18 months believing she was a burden. You don't get to call that instability, I said quietly. You don't get to call love a problem. Victor opened his mouth, then closed it, because for the first time since I'd known him, nobody was afraid of him. Not me, not Mara, not anymore. The mediator cleared her throat. Thank you, Mr. Turner. The meeting ended 20 minutes later. No dramatic victory, no courtroom speech, no applause, just the quiet realization that Victor had lost something more important than control. He had lost the ability to define Mara's story. When we stepped into the hallway, Ellie ran straight toward us, toward Mara, toward me, without hesitation. And as her small hand slipped into mine, I saw tears fill Mara's eyes. Not because she was afraid, because she wasn't anymore. Then she looked at me, really looked at me, and asked the question waiting at the end of everything. Caleb. I squeezed Ellie's hand gently. Yeah. Mara's voice trembled. Are you still afraid of loving me? And suddenly every answer I'd spent 18 months avoiding stood directly in front of me. I looked at Mara in that gray hallway and understood something simple. Fear had been making decisions for me long enough. For 18 months, I had called my silence respect. I had called distance protection. I had told myself that loving Mara quietly was the safest thing I could offer her. But love that hides forever becomes another kind of leaving. So I took a breath. No, I said. Mara went still. I stepped closer, careful not to crowd her, careful not to turn this moment into pressure. I'm not afraid of loving you anymore. Her lips parted. I'm afraid of doing it wrong. I'm afraid of hurting Ellie. I'm afraid Victor will keep trying to twist good things into weapons. Ellie squeezed my hand. I looked down at her, then back at Mara. But I'm more afraid to spend the rest of my life pretending this house didn't become home because you too walked into it. Mara covered her mouth. Tears slipped down her cheeks. I smiled a little, though my own eyes burned. I love you, Mara Collins. The words felt like opening every window in a house that had been shut for years. I love your strength. I love your stubbornness. I love the way you check Ellie's backpack 3 times and still forget your own keys. I love how you made my quiet house loud again. Mara laughed through her tears. And I love Ellie, I said so. Not as a replacement, not as a claim, just as a little girl who turned my workshop into an art gallery and decided I fixed broken things. Ellie looked up. You do. That broke all 3 of us. Mara stepped into my arms. This time I did not hold back. I held her like a man accepting the life standing in front of him. When we got home, the Navy suitcase was still by the door. Mara looked at it for a long moment. Then she picked it up, carried it upstairs, and unpacked it. Not because I asked, because she chose. That night, Ellie fell asleep on the couch during a movie, her rabbit tucked under her chin. Mara and I stood in the hallway between our 2 bedrooms. The room across the hall was still there, mine on one side, hers on the other, but somehow it no longer felt like a border. Mara slipped her hand into mine. So, she whispered, what happens now? I looked at our joined hands, then at the house I once thought was empty. We stopped pretending. I said, she smiled, and for the first time in 18 months, neither of us closed a door between us. Love taught me something I spent years getting wrong. For a long time, I believed caring for someone meant protecting them from every hardship. I thought love was about fixing problems, carrying burdens, and standing between people and pain. But Mara showed me something different. Love is not rescue. Love is choice. It's waking up every day and choosing the same person again. It's respecting their strength instead of trying to replace it. It's building a home together. Not because one person needs saving, but because both people want to stay. When Mara and Ellie first walked through my front door, I thought I was giving them a safe place to land. What I didn't realize was that they were giving me something, too. A family, a future, a reason to stop hiding behind old fears. The house on Maple Ridge still creaks when the weather changes. Ellie still leaves drawings in my workshop. Mara still makes coffee strong enough to wake the dead. And every morning, when I see them at my kitchen table, I remember that the best things in life often arrive quietly. Sometimes they come with a suitcase. Sometimes they come with a child holding a stuffed rabbit. And sometimes they knock on your door at midnight and ask the one question that changes everything. If this story touched your heart, please leave a like and subscribe for more emotional love stories. And before you go, tell me in the comments if someone you secretly love knocked on your door at midnight and asked, "Why are we still sleeping in separate rooms?" What would your answer be? I'd love to read your thoughts. Until next time, take care of yourself and don't be afraid to choose love when it finally finds its way home.